Morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're at in the U.S. and around the world. Welcome to Baseball Outside the Box. I'm your host, Pete Caliendo. We are ready to rock and roll. Before we start, I'm dedicating this show to my great friend who I've worked with the WBSC, been to Cuba with him. He's from Cuba, Pedro Medina, one of the most famous catchers, Cuban baseball, great history. Unfortunately, yesterday got a message that he passed away. And I just wanted to send our condolences and prayers to his family. We put it all over social media. I WhatsApped all my friends in Cuba with the condolences. Pedro, one of the best. I mean, I really got to tell you, humble, such a gentleman, a professional. He was just a great person. So we're going to miss him dearly. Again, Pedro Medina, um, again, passed away, I believe, yesterday is when I got the message. So again, rest in peace, my friend, and one day we'll see you. Okay, folks. Again, this show is dedicated to him. Don't forget that we're all over social media. Plus, we're on Spotify and Baseball Blue Book, along with YouTube. Check us out there. Do us a favor, just subscribe. That really helps us out. We'll get ready with the show. I did want to mention a couple things. We've up to 105 countries. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. All my friends around the world. Please keep spreading the show and let us know, if there's any special guests you'd like to see on the show. Along with, don't forget, Caliendo Sports International. We travel around the world, international competition. Join us if you're a coach, if you're a team that wants to go somewhere around the world, experience international baseball, softball, or any other sport, and also experience the culture of that country. We organize everything for you. We'll tell you more about everything else later, but I want to introduce my great friend. He's been on a show before, but it's been a while because I've been gone for 2 years. And, as you know, we were just back and getting on that horse and riding that horse and taking off. So we're looking forward to this. And I'll tell you what, my friend is the head coach at Our Lady of Lourdes High School in New York. He's also the host of the famous podcast, Clearing the Bases podcast, and he has a lot of great guests tailored towards youth development and helps a lot of parents and young coaches, but he also has coaches at other levels. So I encourage all coaches to join the show, and I'll send you the link on that. And he's also on the committee with the ABCA, the youth committee, which we'll talk about that. I want to ask him about a little bit more what the youth committee with the ABCA has been working on and how we met. I'll let him tell you when he wrote the article with the ABCA. It was about podcasts. So, and that article was in Inside Pitch magazine. So let's not even waste any time. My paisano from New York and good friend, Jimmy Filingeri. What's up, buddy?
The same old stuff, Pete. Just plugging along. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back. Obviously, when I was gone, I was listening to your podcast. And you continue, man. You've been going for a while. How long's your podcast been going now?
Just over 4 years, maybe 4.5 years, roughly.
Outstanding, man. You've had to have a lot of guests.
Well, I got to tell you, Pete, it's and we've talked about this before. It was something that I didn't want to do,
Yeah.
and it's amazing how going from something that I didn't want to do to taking off the way it has. Thanks to people like you and all of my other great guests that I've had, it's fantastic.
And tell me, the reason I do, and folks, we're on Facebook. We got a little feedback, but I'll shut it down. We're on Facebook. If you got any questions during the talks, put them in the comments section. We'll be glad to interact with you. I think that's a lot of fun. I just on that, I started a podcast, I can't remember, maybe 6-7 years ago. And then I took that 2-year break. And I did it for several reasons. One was I wanted to learn more. So, the more guests you have on, the more you're learning. Two, I wanted to share it with people around the world. And even the people in the U.S., because the game is internationally, and allowed us to share information with a lot of different coaches. And if something, and if it took off, it took off. If it didn't, it's just a great thing to do. I mean, are you in the same boat?
Absolutely, it's the same exact thing is where. I mean, I'll be honest with you. When I first started it, I said that there's nobody on earth that's going to listen to me talk about baseball. And that's the way I looked at it. And then I said, you know what? I'll give it a shot. We'll see what happens. And Peter, I got to tell you, I never, ever expected it to do what it did. Never.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes you just don't know. You just got to go for it, right? And for young coaches out there, go for it. whatever you want to do, and do your best. And then that's how. I mean, I know Joe Rogan was real famous, obviously on television, but when he started his podcast, he didn't have a lot of people on. It was just his buddies talking, in their place. They're just talking in general about the UFC or whatever it was. And next you know, 3-4 years later, it started building up. And yes, he's gotten a little bit of a name, obviously, that helped, but it didn't help initially because he really wasn't advertising or he wasn't letting people know about it. It was just doing it for fun. And sometimes when you do it for fun and passion, the thing we get to do, not just on the podcast, but also in baseball in general, good things happen because you don't have a lot. And this, a lot of times people have that goal of money, and then it's not the passion, right? And
Yeah.
that should be the opposite. You got the passion, then actually, maybe you make some money off it. Great. If you don't, you're still, having fun at it.
Yeah, people ask me that all the time. They say, "Hey, your podcast is doing good. This and that. Are you making money?" And I'm like, "No, I don't make a dime off of it. It's what you said. It's the passion, and especially the world that I live in the youth baseball world. I'm my like crusade is to try and make a difference, to try and make it better, and you had alluded to it when you said that, we have guests on and we learn from the guests too. In the 4.5 years, I've become such a better coach because of guys like you and the guests that I've had on.
Hey, speaking about that, tell the audience, how'd you get into coaching?
Oh God. So way back when in early 80s, 81, 82, maybe 83. I started coaching and I was coaching Babe Ruth teams, senior Babe Ruth teams, and that type of thing. And um, I did it for a few years, and then I was very young. I was maybe 20, 21 years old, and it kind of dwindled away. Well, then when I had my son and my son started playing, I said, if I'm going to do this, because I wanted to coach, to help my son, I said, I'm going to do it right this time. Okay. When I first did it, I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I did, but the second time around from day one, which was probably back in 2005 when I started again, um, my goal was to just learn and soak in as much information as I could. And here we are.
Isn't that great? I love it. Hey, listen, one of the areas that I've been thinking for the last, I don't know. Sometimes you're sleeping, and you have some dream, or you wake up and you're thinking about something. And one of the things I was thinking about watching, games and watch and listen to podcasts and all that. Something we haven't talked about that much, and something we used to do in the old days. And I know I'm going back a while. But it really helped the game a lot. And that was, we used to have a lot of baseball schools in the U.S., whether it be your high school coaches, college coaches, private industries, there were schools everywhere with park districts, and young kids could sign up. And I know you remember those days where we had that. I'm a big believer. We're going to have a couple shows on this. I'm a big believer that, we need to get back to that a little bit, because I think it can help fundamentally develop the game even more and get kids a little bit more excited in the game. I know MLB and USA Baseball are doing some things that are fun in the game, but I'm talking about instructional camps. Now, I'm a big believer, and the reason also for starting the podcast, that coaches are more important from the standpoint you could reach more players. Well, let's stick with the baseball camps because that can help also. What did you go to a baseball camp? If you did, what'd you think about it? Or you ran camps? Give us an idea of what you think about baseball camps.
Well, no, I mean, I never went to one. However, okay, lately, and you've probably seen, my stuff on social media about Evolution Baseball. So
Mm-hmm.
last year, I started putting my feelers out with Evolution Baseball because I believe that in the travel baseball world, they play too many games and they don't practice enough. They don't learn the fundamentals. And I see it at the high school level. I can go through a myriad of things that players don't know that they should know.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did is I started promoting about, this Evolution Baseball that we're going to practice more than we're going to play. And it's going to take a while. It's going to take time to make people understand that, you know, you may play on a travel baseball team. Well, first of all, let's go back to a little bit. Community baseball is almost non-existent anymore. Okay,
Right.
nobody does that. Everybody plays on a travel team. We need to bring back community baseball. That's number one. Okay, these kids are going, they're playing with these travel teams, they're playing a ton of games, and they're not learning anything. So I said, let me try and switch this up a little bit. Okay. Getting back to what you said about a baseball school type thing where you come, we train, we work on the rudiments of the game, we make it fun. You know, it's not going to be like a boot camp, but we're gonna do that. And it's starting to take traction slowly. But Peter, you know as well as I do, it's going to take a while. I mean, I would imagine it's going to take a few years before people say, hey, wait a minute, this guy's right.
What that's a great point. And what's your main goal with Evolution Baseball? When you're talking about doing baseball camps, what give us an idea of what you would do in the baseball camps and why you would do those, and what's the benefit for the players that might be starting at 7 years old, 8, 9, 10 years old.
Well, I'm starting them at sixth grade. I'm taking them at like the middle school level, sixth, seventh, eighth. And I also would like to do it with high school players, but that's an even uh, taller hill to climb, the high
Mm-hmm.
school players. But let's go back to the young guys. Okay. So my belief is if we can work with them on rudiments, base running, okay. Um, you know, another thing I'll just it just came to mind is like catchers, for instance, right? I know nobody works with catchers at all, and they just don't they don't do the right catching drills. They don't they don't take them on a field and work with them on pop-ups, you know, behind the plate, and you know all of these things that should be worked on. So I believe that if we work on all of these things, outfielders taking the right routes to the ball, infielders, you know, footwork, receiving, throwing, catch play. Peter, catch play is a joke.
Hmm.
You know, people. I get high school players that think that catch play is just to. I don't know what they think it is or what they've been taught. So we have drills that we do in our catch play. And I got to give a shout out to Trent Mongero because I use his catch play routine.
Mm-hmm.
And we do this. And this teaches players how to move your feet, how to receive the ball, how to transfer the ball. They're not being taught this in travel baseball.
Yeah, and the other thing is that I wanted to bring up. I know personally for a long time I've been working with coaches and stressing this heavily. Um, and it's just me, but everything starts when you're young. And where did I get it? When I was 3 years old, I flew to Italy with a flight attendant to live with my grandparents. And within 3 years living with my grandparents, I learned Italian. I learned the language. So we pick up the habits. We learn faster. We retain more at a young age. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if we're going to get kids to play the game, um, the reason I like the baseball schools is if we can get them start, if they want to play at 7 years old, they don't have to. That's not the age you have to. You can start any age you want. There's players that have started at 9, 10, 11, that have gone on the big leagues. They say, oh, you got to start at 5. Not necessarily. 5's real young. But let's say they start at 8 years old and they go to a baseball camp. And at the baseball camp, you have very good instructors. You've got good teachers. You've got people teaching the fundamentals where you're talking about, but you also have teachers and coaches that are setting the example for young players on what it's like, to dress properly, to communicate properly. I mean, there's a lot more to than just the skills themselves because they're going to learn a lot at the baseball school. Hopefully, they'll learn things at home that have nothing to do with baseball, but have to do with life. So we're talking about life skills that they can learn at a real young age through those baseball camps.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and again, you hit the nail right on the head because one of my biggest things is teaching young kids how to fail because you see it now again when they're older, and you know as well as I do, when they're 16, 17 years old, it's very hard to break those habits.
Right.
And if you can take little Johnny, who's 8, 9, 10 years old, and he makes an error, and you let him know, hey, that's okay. Come on, let's get on to the next play. Okay. That is so valuable to get them to learn that. And like you said, you know, how to deal with it, how to be disciplined. Okay. And you had said, like, you learn things at home, make your bed. Okay. By making your bed at home. And that's discipline if you did it every day. And the same thing, we teach you discipline in baseball. And if we can get that to younger kids, how to be disciplined, how to deal with failure, um, how to think on the baseball field. I can give you stories of baseball IQ being non-existent. It doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah, and that's my point. I mean, if you're going to develop young players to do those things, you got to start them young, and then hopefully, I think at a baseball school, you can then also bring in some of the local coaches, to help out, and then they're learning at the base, at the same time, even though they're helping, but they're learning, and things like let your players play the game a little bit, let them, like you said, make mistakes, learn from those, ask questions to your players, don't harp on them all the time, don't tell them what to do constantly, because I just don't think players nowadays are playing the game on their own. And I'm going to tell you this, we ran a lot of baseball schools in the old days, and we had 26 schools in Chicago,
Wow.
a satellite program for Mickey-owned baseball school. So I spent 10 years Mickey-owned baseball school. Then I ran satellite programs for them in Chicago. 26 camps, running park districts, youth programs, in cooperation with them. We had our own instructors, were high school, college coaches, let's say some younger coaches, college players that can be real good teachers coming from good programs. And we averaged about 60 kids a camp, and everything was standardized, whether it be the drills, the fun things, the terminology, everything was standardized. So that way kids weren't confused either. They're getting the good instruction, the good leadership skills from their coaches, because they're seeing what their coaches are like, right? Because I
Yes.
saw something in church the other day, and it was interesting. It said, you really don't have to always talk to people. You just got to set the example, because kids watch everything you do, right? So
Yes.
how you dress, how you talk, the language you use, all those things are critical. Well, you don't have to tell them don't swear. If they see you not swearing, most likely they're not going to swear, because they're learning from you. I mean, so there's a lot of, again, we go back to the life skills, a lot of things that they can learn from that. That's why I want to see the baseball schools come back. And it's also another way for, what do you think? I mean, it's a way for high school coaches to make a little money, because you got to charge for the schools, but it's a way for them to make a little money because they don't get paid a lot, to run baseball. College coaches do it, but it can be a business for people, and it can be a good business if you run it well.
Yeah. And, I just had this conversation with somebody that was interested in the program, and they called me up and they wanted more information, and they asked me about the cost. And, I explained the cost, and they asked me, they said, well, where's that money going? And it's, to be honest with you, it's going to pay my coaches. I said,
Mm-hmm.
most of the expense is going to be the coaches. I said, because look, we all know that you get what you pay for. So if I want to bring in quality coaches, I can't tell them I'm going to give you $500, because they're not going to do it. So you have to
Right.
have, a carrot to be able to dangle and say, okay, guys, if you come here and you do this, this is what your compensation is going to be. So that, to me, is very important. And something else that you said I wanted to bring up is that we I'm actually promoting. I haven't done it as much, but I'm promoting that not only are we going to teach the players, we want to teach the coaches. We want to teach little league coaches and travel ball coaches. And if you're interested in the program, come work with us. We'll show you how to run the drills. We'll explain why you're doing what you're looking for when you're doing the drills. I want to create more. And Ryan Brownlee from the ABCA uses this word all the time. I've kind of adopted it. Facilitators. We don't necessarily need coaches like me and you, but we need people that could facilitate. And if we can help do that, I'd love to do that also.
The other thing we got to do is, if you're running camps, somehow you got to bridge the gap between the baseball camps and the travel teams. Because it'd be nice because you got so many travel teams that have young kids. I mean, they start travel ball at 8 years old. And maybe some of the travel teams, I think one of the mistakes some of the travel teams make is they don't train enough, like you said. And we know, again, I hate to harp on this, but we know the pyramid has been done. Studies have been done on this a lot. Younger you are, the more training you need, the less games you need. As you start to get a little older, that pyramid kind of shifts. You're going to play more games, and then practice just a little less. And the common denominator around the world, when you see the good teams internationally, it is simply that. It's that they train more than they play. Now, they might play 100 games, example, in Cuba, but they train 150 times compared to as much as they play. So they train a lot more no matter what. I don't know, maybe this could be a good thing for the travel teams because they can't always run practices. Now their kids can go to the camps in the morning, get some workout, work on their skill development because you're going to fit. The reason I bring that up, Jimmy, is you're going to lose your skill development even during the season. And if you're playing travel ball and not practicing, and your arm, example, starts to drop, a little bit, maybe, and you're starting to throw a little bit with your elbow low, and you don't realize it, you can get hurt. But if you continuously work on your fundamentals, you're less likely to do that. So, that might be a good thing for the organizations to work together.
And it's a good point too, because I was asked that. I've had people that have inquired and they've said to me, can I train with you during the week and play with my travel team on the weekend? And my response was absolutely. Any way that we can help the kids, I'm for it. I don't, I'm not an egotistical guy. It doesn't have to be me. That's not what it's about. Okay. It's about offering what I know is needed. And if that's what it's going to be, then fine, come train with us, go play with your travel team. I'll even work with your travel coaches if you want.
Hey, here's the other thing. In order to keep kids in the game, they've got to learn something, they've got to have fun, and they've got to develop a little bit. Because if they don't do those three things, they're not going to be successful. They're going to quit and go find something else to do. The camps can be fun. All right. Now, when you got the young kids, I know as you get a little older, maybe that fun is still there, maybe not as much. But with the real young kids, you got to have some fun with them. Ideas. What are some ideas during the baseball camp? You have a week camp or 3-day camp, whatever it may be. So, I don't know. I know I'm throwing things out because you and I, we never go over questions. We just kind of ask each other things and talk. Sometimes that's the best way instead of having an outline and knowing exactly what we're going to ask. I like it that way. But what are some of the fun things you'd like to see in baseball camps if somebody's running a baseball camp?
Like I said, to make it fun, I'll use as an example. Okay, so create competitions, create games, and sometimes they don't even really have to be baseball. You could do a relay race. Okay. One of the things that I like to do is have competitions. The kids go to shortstop, hit them a ground ball, time them how fast they get the ball over to first base. And, obviously whoever gets the quickest time is going to win. That's a competition. The kids love it. Okay. They love it because, they're trying to outdo their buddy and, they get excited about it. You could do many things. You could even do like a bunting drill, set up a target. Okay. If you get it in the target, it's a point. Okay. Work that way. There's just so many things that you can do. Create those games. And, like I said, it doesn't even have to be baseball. You could have them, chase each other around the bases or whatever. But, at least be there to correct them. So in other words, if you're doing like a relay around the bases, that's fine. Let them go. But, okay, use that. Find the teaching moments in that. So if somebody, doesn't hit the corner of the bag or, whatever it is, be able to correct them. Okay. But make it, okay, guys, everybody understand, this is where you have to step on the base. And then, okay, let's get back to it. Come on, let's go. And then, let them get back to the fun. But I think that a lot of times, and I've seen it before, where coaches will, they'll pick anything. I don't know, a cutoff relay. Okay. And I've seen this because it just came to my head because I saw it on social media. They'll say, okay, guys, we're going to do a cutoff relay. And again, you could make that into a competition. That could be fun. but you have to
Mm-hmm.
correct them if they're not doing it right. And I've seen it on social media where they're running this and nobody's correcting, the kids on how they should receive a cut, how they should move, move with the ball, turn glove side. There's all, and they're not teaching them. So then what's the point? Then there's no point in doing it.
So are you seeing at the younger levels not as much fundamental development that you'd like to see?
Yeah, it's because what happens is I see them at the high school level. Obviously, I really don't see them when they're young. And I see and I'm shocked what they don't know. Um, we spend so much time on rundowns. Okay, rundowns, perfect example. If you want to see a mess, come and watch what I saw last year when I got to this new position at Lords when they were trying to do a rundown. It was a mess, and I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, these are varsity high school players. Okay. How could it be that you've been playing baseball since you're 5 years old and you don't know how to do a simple rundown? You don't know that when you're chasing the runner, it's a full out sprint, that you don't dance with them. You don't know that you don't pump the ball as they don't know. And that blew my mind.
You know what? That's interesting. Because that brings up a great point. And we all know this. By the time you get to high school, for poor high school coach trying to change that player is almost impossible. I mean, he's going to get him as a freshman, and it's going to take him 3 years just to change him, possibly. If he obviously, but what's interesting about all this is yes, our younger coaches that are working with young kids, it's their responsibility to understand some of the fundamentals, right? The basics. Not you don't have to know everything, but understand the basics and teach them, right? So, but at the same time, if you didn't know anything, okay, it's going to take a little longer. Let them do the rundown. Let them just do rundowns. Just sit there till they do it right. When we were kids, we figured it out. I didn't have anybody tell me how to do the rundown. So
That's right.
now, if we just let them do it, if you don't know anything, let them do it till they get the guy out and tell them, listen, it's got to be less than 2 throws. Start with that, or less than 3 throws. Start somewhere, and they're gonna have fun, man, because they're throwing back and forth, and then okay, it didn't work. Now they're gonna try it again, then again, then again. Maybe you figure something out as a coach and say, okay, hold on, what do you think you need to do here? Should we try 1 throw, 2 throws? Do we need to wait for the ball? Whatever. Just ask him questions and then let him do it again, right? Sometimes just about doing it, doing it, doing it. But at the same time, I agree because, I mean, it's a lot faster if coaches understand the fundamentals, but I'm just amazed that we're not teaching that at the young levels.
So am I, and that's my biggest pet peeve. I mean, again, we'll use this rundown as an example. Okay, they come in and they're trying to throw the ball over the runner. All right, okay, so nobody ever taught you to create an angle. Fine, okay, but I look at it like your high school player. If I tell you, okay, when you're running down, if you're a right-handed thrower, your left shoulder's in the middle of the runner's back. This way, you create an angle. I should only have to tell you once, maybe twice. I'll give you
Right.
twice. But because they've been throwing over that runner for the last 10 years, it just doesn't sink in right away. And they keep making the same mistake over and over and over. Um, that's why, again, to your point, why I want to do this baseball school, because then if I get them at 6th grade, 7th grade, I guarantee you we teach them over the course of a fall, which is 6 to 8 weeks, and we work on rundowns a lot with them. I guarantee you by the time that fall is over, they know how to do it.
What are some of the things you focus on more than others with some of your players when it comes to training, as far as fundamentals? What do you? There's only so much you can do in your practice or your time with them. What are the key areas that you're focusing on that if you do well these areas, your success rate will be a little higher than normal?
Um,
What are
I mean,
those
obviously
things?
pitching. Pitching is number one, right? Again, the the players in the world that we live in now, they are so caught up in velocity. I gotta throw hard. I gotta throw hard. Um, but they can't throw strikes. They just can't throw
Hmm.
strikes. And it's insane that you could have a kid get on that mound time after time after time, and nobody is working with him to make him, to work with him how to command, and that type of stuff. So we work on that. The other thing, Peter, which is amazing to me, bunting. These kids do not know how to bunt. They don't even know how to square. They don't know that the barrel is above the knob. They don't know to catch the ball. They're stabbing at the ball. So we work on that a lot. Um, Outfield routes, because these are all of the things that they're not taught. We teach outfielders how to run the correct routes to baseballs. um, Cutoffs. It's another thing they don't know. They don't know how important it is to hit a cutoff. They don't know how important it is for the catcher to um, take control and either not say anything and let it go through, yell cut where he cuts and holds, or cut and redirect. We have to work on that. Infield play, we have to work on the rudiments there also. um, Pete, it's everything. Base running. Guys don't know how to take leads off the second base. High school players, they don't know how to. And when you
Wow.
teach it to them, they look at you like you're nuts.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know you're on the ABCA Youth Committee, and I think it's been a few years now. Tell us about what, I know some of the things that you guys are talking about, but not just talking about, but actually doing to maybe help grow the game, develop the game, as you're talking about, teaching coaches or working with fundamental, stressing fundamentals, might be encouraging doing baseball camps. That might be an area,
Yeah.
but what are you guys working on?
So one of the big things that we do is in November, we meet. First year was in Virginia, which I wasn't part of the first year. Second year was in Kansas City. Last year was in Augusta, Georgia. And this year, I believe, is going to be Austin, Texas. And we have what we call a summit. So we have, I'm going to guess it's probably about 40, 50 guys. And each year it seems to grow a little bit more where, we're having Little League is getting involved. Cal Ripken is getting involved. And I can't remember pony baseball. We have perfect
Hmm.
game represented there. Um, we have everything from guys like me that are a high school coach, college coaches. Um, for crying out loud, Billy Wagner was with us in Augusta last year, the Hall of Fame pitcher. We have that level of people there. And we try and come up with solutions to get back to good baseball. Okay. I'll say that. So, like, last year during all of the presentations, believe it or not, we had somebody from the, I forget what it was, the tennis association, USA Tennis, that came and told us how they got tennis back on track to get, the basics done. Great presentation, that type of thing. And we brainstorm on that. Then we broke up into groups, and one group was working on how to educate parents. Another group was working on how to educate coaches, and we're trying to put all of this together to present so that people will look and say, you know what, go to the ABCA, you can learn all of this and become a better coach.
Where's that going to be presented at? I mean, once you put all this together, is it presented at ABCA or is it given to associations? What's the goal? I guess.
I don't think we've gotten that far yet, how we're going to put it out there. It'll most likely, well, definitely it'll be on the website. So you'll be able to go to almost kind of like what USA Baseball does, where they have all of their
Instructional
information on
details.
baseball.
Yep.
I know
You
that
know.
Ryan
You know.
Brownlee started, go ahead.
No. 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 Go. Go.
I know that Ryan Brownlee started putting together videos working with the little guys,
Hmm.
doing drills and stuff like that. And, we'll start promoting that. Really, we're going into the fourth year of this summit, so it's still in its infancy. And the way I see it, the fact that it's taking us so long to come up with these solutions tells you how complex this is.
what's some of the obstacles you're running across with some of the coaches? I'll give you a little example. Just an obstacle that came up, which was interesting. One year, USA Baseball is coming out with a pitch, count program along with MLB. Right, great program, and I knew a bunch of the individuals who ran major tournaments. I knew specifically one that was pretty big, was running tournaments, and I said to them, because I knew him real well, I said, "Hey, why don't you guys include pitch counts into your tournaments? You'd be the first one, right? The leader. I mean, what a great way to do this. I mean, show everybody that this is so important that we're going to institute it in our program." They said, "Pete, we can't do that." I said, "What do you mean you can't do that? You be the front runner. Break the barrier. Come on, you want exposure, you want recognition. Do something good like that." Well, the reason they weren't going to do it is because if they instituted the pitch count program at that time, now we're going back several years, nobody would show up to the tournament. So in other words, they go to the other tournaments to play, which was incredible. So that's what I'm talking about. Are there any obstacles from the group that you're with at that time meeting? Are there any obstacles that come up and say, this is going to be tough to do for this reason, but how do we overcome it? Because I always believe there's a way to overcome an obstacle.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, because that was one of the things that we discussed was pitch counts with tournament directors, and Perfect Game implemented that. Perfect Game now they have pitch counts. I don't know how they enforce it, but they do have it. Okay.
Well, the high school associations do it. The high school associations do it. There's got to be a way to enforce. I mean, enforcing it, they figured that out.
But I mean, not to get off what you asked about the obstacles, but I got to talk a little bit about pitch counts, because yes, they do it, but it gets abused. I mean, it gets abused like you can't imagine. So in the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, where I coach, you're allowed to throw, I think, 105, 110 pitches in the beginning of the season, and then it jumps up at a certain point to 120 pitches in a game. Okay. And I've seen it. What guys will do is they'll run a kid out there every fourth day and throw him 110 pitches. Okay. To me, that's abusing it. Okay. You shouldn't be doing that. I did not have a pitcher, and it only happened once this year, that a pitcher threw over 90 pitches. I usually keep them 80 and under. Okay. Youth baseball tournaments. Okay. So the other day I actually posted, you may have seen it on Facebook, where there was an organization. The kid threw 91. He's 11. The kid's 11. 91 pitches in 2 1/3 innings.
Wow.
I mean, and when I brought it up and I said, what's that?
There's no rules there?
No, there weren't in that. I guess whatever they were playing, that was a league game. That wasn't a tournament. But when I posted about it, people came back at me and said, well, that's within the pitch smart pitch counts. It's okay. And I'm like, no, not in 2 1/3 innings. It's not.
No. Wow.
We need to educate.
And then you wonder why. Then you wonder why there's injuries when they get older. Whether in college or pro ball or in the big leagues. And now I'll give you an example. I mean, with the World Baseball Softball Confederation, we have pitch counts for several international events. Works out really well. I mean, we also work the World Baseball Classic, and there's pitch counts in the World Baseball Classic. So there's ways to implement the pitch counts. There's ways to control the pitch counts. What I thought was a mistake, but I knew that they needed to start somewhere, is they started the pitch count program at the high school level. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's great, but high school coaches will abuse it. But the numbers compared to what a volunteer who doesn't understand it because they don't do it for a living or they're not educators is going to be a lot worse at the younger levels. And if you're going to set an example, why would you start it at the high school level? Why wouldn't you start it at the youth level? But I get it. So then I'm open-minded. Then I said, okay, but at least if people see the high schools doing it, maybe they'll understand how important it is. Another example to give out there, which is a simple one, with parents that are coaching, or whether it's travel teams, some are professionals, they understand the game, they're teachers, they're developers, and some are not. They're doing it, the best they can. But if you watch Major League Baseball, how many times you see a pitcher throw 3 days in a row out of the bullpen? You don't. Okay, so you got a common sense. You got a mature person, fully developed, fundamentally strong, plays the game where he's a professional, and they don't do it with them. But you're going to do it with a 10-year-old at a tournament on a weekend, throw him 3 different days, maybe throw him twice in one day. I mean, throw him in the morning, 2 innings, and then throw him in the afternoon. That's impossible. That's the reason you're getting hurt. So I fault, again, the people that are running the tournaments. If you don't have pitch counts, that's your fault. Because we got to, and I'm assuming now they're all on board with pitch counts, I hope, because if you're going to help develop the game, grow the game, and keep kids in the game longer, then you've got to, safety has to be at the top of the line. We talk baseball schools. I remember when I first started making on baseball school as a student and a counselor and a coach, one of the first things they told me, anytime you do drills, this is back then, 40 years ago, you do a drill, make sure, one, it's extremely safe. First thing, the drill is safe. 2, it accomplishes good movement or mechanics, whatever you want to call it. And 3, it helps in some results. In other words, they throw the ball better or they hit it a little bit better. It's helping in that area. But number 1 was safety, and that should be at the top.
Well, I mean, how about this? Especially at the younger ages, okay, 8, 9, 10. Whenever they start pitching, I think it's 8 or 9 where they start pitching. Okay, make that pitch count low. Make the allowable pitches low. And the reason why I say that is because you hear this all the time. Oh, well, I don't have enough pitchers. Okay, well, maybe if you start working with your whole team, because if you keep the pitch count low to get through a game, you're going to have to use a lot of guys. So you get, you give kids the experience of pitching. Okay, instead of taking the 8-year-old that is better than everybody else and running him out there game after game after game and not giving the other guys a chance. Because I believe at the younger ages, again, 8, 9, 10, 11, all the way up to 13, kids should play every position on the diamond. You can't pigeonhole kids when they're that young. That's insane.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, you bring up a great point, and I know here we are, man. It's gonna open up, and we don't have that much time left, but we're gonna do our best here to throw it in here. Okay, so here we are. Now we're talking about it should be stress and should be mandatory at all workouts. And you talk about in-house programs, you talk about baseball camps, you talk about travel teams, whatever it may be. Number 1, stressing throwing fundamentals, making sure that they've got that down perfection. Because I hear it all the time. Oh, throwing's so important. Then you go to practice and they spend 15 minutes warming up throwing, and that's the whole throwing program. Okay, same thing with pitchers. Oh, you hear terms like 90% of games pitching. Then you go to practice and 10% is spent on pitching. If 90% is pitching, why are we spending more time with pitching? But my point is this: throw well, pitch well. It's common denominator. Don't tell me that if you throw well, you can't pitch well. It's the same difference. Okay. Now, yes, you got to have some experience, but we can develop the young kids with experience, right? You can throw the hitters without swinging the bat, and they just stand there and the hitter times it. There's a bunch of things you can do, but we're talking about throwing, making sure that's fundamentally very good. And then the other part is, being able to develop players' athletic skills, their movement patterns, being able to move around a little bit, get their footwork down, because that's going to help them too as far as accomplishing some of the skills that they're doing. So there's got to be some common denominators that are being done consistently. And you brought it up. Every pitcher, every person should be able to pitch. Now, one pitcher might only pitch against the 7th, 8th, 9th hitter. Might be his first time, but he gets a chance to pitch, good or bad. Forget what the score is. Forget what happens. Everybody's playing by the same rules, and we're developing more pitchers. The other thing is, look, there's got to be a maximum pitch count for that inning also. You got a
Yes.
kid throwing 30 pitches in an inning. He's got to get out. You got to get him out of there. Now, different ages, different times. I mean, different situations. But there's got to be a minimal pitch count per inning. So now that forces you to have more pitchers. And then you got to have a maximum also per game. I mean, so there's got to be certain things in there. The question is, are we willing to implement these things, or are we just going to run the Wild West and everybody does whatever they want?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, that's the reason why I'm trying to bring back this baseball school, is because I believe that everything, like you said, catch play. Okay. I envision, once we get started in September, that my catch play is probably going to take, in the very first practice, may take up half of the practice for them to do it, because it's they've never done it before. And I don't believe that I should bring them out there and say, okay, guys, this is what we're doing. Do this, do this, do this. Okay. All right. We're done. No, I want to do it right. So we may not get it right the first time, but we're going to spend time on it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you came and you saw my high school team do their catch play before a game or at practice, it's, believe it or not, Peter, you're going to think I'm nuts. It's synchronized. Okay. So in other words, one of the captains on the team will say, okay, guys, whatever, drill one. Okay. And then he'll go, okay, everybody ready? Go. And they'll throw. And when the ball hits the other side, when the guys receive it, it's almost like you hear almost one clap, bang, because it hits everybody's glove at the same time.
Mm-hmm. That's
okay?
awesome.
Again, and the only reason why I do it that way is because it makes them focus. I very rarely see one of my guys overthrow their partner, anymore. You used to see that like crazy, but they're focused now. And these are the things that we need to do. It's creating discipline. There's just so many things you can do that will help players focus and be disciplined. And the catch play is so important.
And, speaking about catch play, I've talked about it on the show so many times. I mean, I think I turned blue. I spent, in Japan, probably 20 times in Japan. So I've seen all levels of Japanese baseball, whether it be the youth, high school, college, and professional level. Been involved with all of them. You talk about catch play. There isn't anybody who plays better catch than the Japanese. Now, the Asians in general, but the Japanese are probably the best, better than anybody. I'll put them against competition against any team in the U.S., anywhere in the world. Catch play now, and the result of that is what I'm trying to show coaches. The result of that catch play, because they focus on it so much, my players have gone there, and they want to stay and watch practice because they can't believe what they're seeing, how these kids play catch so well. And you know what? They asked me, how do they do that? Well, it's very simple. They just practice more than you do. They're not any different. They just practice more. Now, they're brought up young and disciplined at a young age, but still, if they want to get better, they just do it over and over as much as they can. They go do it on their own and they become good at it. Now, Jimmy, what's the result of that? The result is they got some of the best defensive players in the world. They're most teams, their goal and their pitchers are outstanding, some of the best as far as control. So, which means they got less pitches per game or per inning. They all pitch. Eventually, so many of them throw hard. So this thing about, you're small, you can't throw hard, or you're big and you throw hard, but you can't control the ball. You could do both if you know what you're doing, if you know what you're training. But the other result, they can play any position.
Yeah.
Because they focus so much on catch play, which includes ground balls, but catch. So you could take a Japanese player. I remember some major league players not too long ago, maybe about 10 years ago. I remember a couple of them, came up as a third baseman. They asked them to play third. Well, it took them a week to get ready. Was playing third, and they asked him to play second base. Big league guy. I can't remember his name maybe the Rays. And within a week, he was playing second base because he just had to learn a few fundamental skills. He didn't have to learn the whole thing all over again because he can catch and throw. And that's my point. If they can do it, where you catch and throw really well, and then all these other things result from it. Why aren't we doing enough of that?
Yeah, and the the number one, well, the errors that are made the most, even at the major league level, every level, the errors that are made the most are throwing errors.
Yeah.
They're not, they're not missing the baseball, they're because you can't throw. Um, it's so important, Peter. And again, it's something that people need to emphasize more. And again, like I said, the very rudiments of the game. First baseman. First basemen do not know how to field the position because nobody ever worked with them. So, how hard is it to take a kid, okay, and put him at first base, show him what the footwork is like, where they should be on the bag, how they should stretch for the ball, and then bounce them a couple of balls or throw them a couple of balls and do that day after day after day, okay? He's going to get better. But if you never do it or you don't introduce it to him, he doesn't know.
And again, to end the show, Jimmy, this has been great. That's why I bring up the point about baseball schools. If we got back to baseball schools, which stresses the fundamentals, understand how to do it fun, because I remember, again, I'm going from experience. Mickey on
Yeah.
baseball schools USA. We ran baseball schools in the US before the Doyle brothers ran them, before any major league team was doing them in their local communities. And we had expanded in 3-4 states. What we saw was young kids having a lot of fun because it was structured around that. And we saw a lot of development due to that because they're having fun, they're learning more. And you didn't have to tell them because they were doing it more. We had that ratio of 5 to 6 players per coach. They were doing a lot of drills. They were doing a lot of fun games. They were, it was just, the coaches were interacting with them. They were great role models. There was a lot of development going on at the young levels, and we saw the results. The players were getting better as they're getting older too. And not, to me, that's how you keep kids in the game. So again, folks, that's our topic. I mean, not too many podcasts have had a topic on baseball schools. We're going to continue that topic with some more guests this week and next week. The next topic I'm jumping on should have been the first one, Jimmy. And that's what, again, I go on what I've done in my life. And then, I know you've done this too. And I just came from that industry, and that is training coaches. The better the coaches you train, the more players you'll see successful and stay in the game longer. You train 100 coaches, you reach 5,000 players. You train 200, you reach more. So that's going to be our next topic, and I hope to see you on that one too.
Yeah, I mean that's in my thing. Another article I wrote for Inside Pitch magazine was coaching the coaches. That's how important I believe that is.
I agree. All right, man. I know we're not going to change the world in one day. They said Rome wasn't built in 3 days, but the key is hopefully. And I know, folks, I know there's a lot of good coaches in the U.S. doing some great things, and they're all over the place. I get that part, but there's not enough, and we got to be real careful. Travel ball was a great idea when it came to competition. Because some of the better players needed to play at higher competition, but I think it's spun out of control a little bit, and it needs to be brought back. And I know that happens in evolution, and sometimes. Oh, there you go, perfect for your camps, the evolution of baseball. But I know it's going to circle back because even Major League Baseball's had their issues with home runs, high strikeouts, and all that. Now injuries, that's going to have to come back. Same thing with youth baseball. There's going to have to be some balance there, in my opinion, if we're going to keep these kids in the game longer. I'm not talking about keeping them in the game for 2-3 years, long term. That's how you grow the game even more. We're just lucky enough to have 26 million amateur players in the U.S. because a lot of other countries understand this because they don't have those number of players, and they've got to do things to make sure they keep kids in the game longer and they get kids to play the game. They're competing against other sports also. So, again, let's hope we've done a little bit of our part. Last comment by you, my friend, and we'll shut it down.
No, I mean, thanks for having me, Peter. As always, I mean, I can sit and I can talk to you for hours. I enjoy our conversations, and thanks for having me on.
Awesome. All right, folks. Jimmy, Phil, and Jerry, loved it. We will be all over social media. We'll put it all over the internet and also all over Spotify. It'll be on baseballbluebook.com. Check out baseballbluebook.com. It's got a lot of resources, college, high school coaches, a lot of things there. Everybody should participate. It's free there, baseballbluebook.com. And I stress it because there you can meet a lot of people. You can interact with coaches. You can promote players, but you can also promote yourself as a coach, because if you're looking to do more in the game, that's a great place to do that. And don't forget, tell them Pete Caliendo from Baseball Outside the Box sent you. All right, folks, remember 3 things I tell you at the end. Stay healthy, be safe, God bless you, and we will see you on the next show. Good night, everybody.